Welcome to Real Talk. We just talk about a lot of real subject matters and so forth. Information that affects us as melanated people. Check it out. Now, the question is, you ever heard of John Brown? Slaving on the Fed. No? Right here, check it out. I don't know if y'all can see this. Alright, what it says is John Brown in 1810 to 1876, also known by his slave name Fed, was born into slavery on a plantation in Southampton County, Virginia. He is known for his memoir published in London, English in 1855, Slave as Georgia. A narrative of a slave suffering escape. John Brown was a fugitive slave now in England. This slave narrative dictated a helper who wrote it. So this talks about the life of John Brown. Now he was born in Southampton County, Virginia, to slave parents Joe and Nancy called Nanny. They grew up with his twin siblings Celsia and Lucy. They lived in the plantation of Betty Moore, his mother's mistress. He later recalled seeing their father Joe only once when he was allowed to see the family. His father was held by a planter named Benford in Northampton, Virginia. Fed's paternal grandfather had been stolen from Africa. It was one of the Igbo tribe. Now, I know people always say, "Oh yeah, well that just proved it." You know, saying slaves went from Africa. Proving they went from Africa does not mean they were African. I'll explain. You see that right there? That's about the Igbo tribe, right? Alright, what it says is the Igbo tribe is one of the largest, most influential ethnic groups in Nigeria who speak Igbo language. They live mainly in the southeastern Nigeria, but some also practice Judaism, which is, the teachings that we learn as Hebrews, saying they come from Israel, right? And believe they are descendants from Israel. They were Judites. So-called African Americans, we're not really African. We predate that. That goes back to Mesopotamia as well. People say, no, you can't prove that black people lived in Asia. All right, see this right here? Those are the black-headed ones, right? They're from Asia. That's Mesopotamia. And that's artwork that proves that we lived in Mesopotamia, right? Now, since we on that subject matter, I see it right here. See it right there? See what African Americans at, or so-called African Americans, Judah. That's us black people, right? That live in America, right? That's your African roots. Igbo, that's Judah. That's your African roots. When y'all see our African Americans, the African American roots is Judah. Alright? So when they say Igbo tribe, they're talking about Igbo tribe and so forth. Could be any demographic at the same time, because all of us were slaves in Africa before we went to slave trade. So black and Spanish, Semitic, indigenous people, we all were slavery in Africa. Alright? So that being said, we all linked to the Igbo tribe. That's why we all got African roots. We all been slavery in Africa. That's a fact. Alright, so that's from there. So people can sit back and say, well, Jamaicans, that's Benjamin. Ephraim, that's Puerto Rican. Manasseh, that's Cubans. Simeon, Dominica Republic. Asher, Brazil. Venezuela. Reuben, Somalia. Levi, Haitian. Gad, Native American. Nephili, Hawaiian. Zebulon. Zebulon, Guatemala, Panama. Ephraim, Puerto Rican. Manasseh, Cuban. Gad, North American Indian. Reuben, Simeon Indian. Nephili, Argentina, Chile. Asher, Colombia, Oregon. Issachar, America. So all of us was in slavery. So when we think about the Igbo tribe, that's why we all have African roots, right? Because we always enslaved in Africa. All right. So anyway, back to what I was saying. Back to John Brown. His he was from the listen. That was what they said. I had to explain that, but they said the Igbo tribe. Anyway, so after his father's master moved with Joe from the area, Fed's mother and forced to take another husband, he was known as Lamb and was held by a nearby planter Miller known as Collier in a room cabin with other room occupied by his mother niece Anki and her children. So the thing about it is, why is it and so forth that we never get told? We don't even get talked about this. Nobody ever tells us anything about this. Why is that? I think I might got the answer for that. Brown made his way north, working in various places. He sailed to England in 1850 as a new fugitive slave law passed in the United States, increased the enforcement against fugitive slaves. Even in free states, he did not want to be taken back into slavery. In London, Brown worked as a carpenter. There he constructed the British Informant Anti-Slave Society to tell his story in 1855. Now, I wonder, the part of the story that they don't show you is probably because the fact is so forth. I would have to think, if I was a slave and I wanted to get freedom, how would I do it? This is the part of the story they don't tell us. So I can't find any documentation to prove it, but I just sit back and apply critical thinking. If I was a slave and I was living in Georgia and I wanted to get freedom, what would I do? First thing I would have to think of is, how would I get there? I would need a slave ship, right? Then that's what I need. I would need to have a former slave master. They would justify having all the slaves on that ship. Then I might have to free them. So then I had to go back to America from London after I started anti-slavery rebellion and so forth in America. That's why they don't tell us about him. That's exactly what he did. But they don't have the documentation to prove that last part. But it only makes sense. How else would he get there? And there's a reason why they're not telling us. And that's why.